Kia ora, everyone, and welcome to the Strongcast Down Under. I'm your host, Logan, and I am here with Will. Will, do you want to introduce yourself, maybe just tell a little bit about your background, and then get cracking into it?
Yeah, so hey guys, my name is William Whitlock. I'm the owner and founder of Leviathan Nutrition. So Leviathan Nutrition, we started back in 2018. Our first product was Tudka. So, it's kind of a little bit different than your typical supplement company. So we started with Tudka, and then from there we kind of branched into more of the specializing for health, especially athletes, people are using PEDs. Our brand is one that they're very familiar with whenever it comes to choosing quality health products that are going to help them with that aspect. And then as for some more detail about myself, basically I've been into, weightlifting, bodybuilding since 2006 was my first bodybuilding show I went to when I was 16 years old. I met Jay Cutler, still have a picture of him somewhere, like back when we had like flip phones, so I don't think it was even on the internet. But I just remember seeing him. I was like, dude, this guy's like wider than he is tall. It was like one of the most amazing things I saw in my life. So since then, I've been like really into bodybuilding. And then my degree, I have a degree from UCLA in chemistry, so that of course helps with the supplement side of things, with formulating. And then, the reason why I started Leviathan kind of combines both bodybuilding and chemistry. So it was a good way for me to branch out in that direction.
It's quite funny you mentioned Jay Cutler because he was literally the first person I walked into like we have a store in New Zealand called Rebel Sport. I don't know what you would call it in America, but it's basically like a whole sports store with like all everything to do with sports in there. And
Uh-huh.
I saw him on a magazine, and I was like, damn, I didn't know that was possible that you could look like that. I wanna try and look like that. And
Yeah,
then
dude, that was like or I guess magazines were starting to go away back then. But yeah, like
yeah,
MD was still really popular back then. You had, someone was on the front cover of a magazine. It was a big deal. Now I don't even know if they still do
I don't even know.
magazines.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if they really do. I know MD kind of shut down and all that, but
Yeah, they just shut down theirs. I remember hearing the news on
yeah,
that like a couple months ago.
yeah, sad,
End of an
sad day.
era.
Yeah, end of
Crazy.
an era. Um, so you started 2018. It's quite interesting that you started with the health side, or I don't know, people call it like the wellness side, because a lot of supplement companies these days, do you find that they start with like a pre-workout and then a whey protein, and then they kind of go down the generic route of marketing towards, I guess, performance side? What what made you decide to go in the health route? That was your decision. Yeah.
Well, at the time, I I was just Leviathan wasn't really even something I was planning on doing full time. I was still working full time as I worked as a lab tech, and then later on as an R&D chemist for a place that would manufacture like personal what's the word, like shampoos, conditioners, and they also had a dietary supplement manufacturing. So I got to sit in a couple of like audits. NSF was the branch, NSF audits and that sort of thing. So learned some of like the regulatory side of supplements. But yeah, like for us, it was just that like I needed a market for Tudka. Like I had friends, who were competing in bodybuilding, powerlifting, who didn't really, we were all wanting to find like good Tudka. There wasn't really a good single source, because I went through a few different raw ingredient suppliers, um, buying like the raw materials of Tudka, getting it in, sending it out myself for testing, having the test results come back, and we had quite a few that would come back as, there's actually no Tudka at all in it, or one of them was as low as like 4%. So I think what was happening was a lot of raw material suppliers would send you a different form of bile salt or bile acid and try to pass it off as Tudka. So that was pretty alarming. And just knowing how expensive, Tudka is to purchase, um, you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and getting it tested and making sure that what you have is really what it's supposed to be. Because TUDCA is very beneficial for liver health. There really is nothing else like it, nothing else as potent as it when it comes to that aspect. And then also some of the cool like anti-aging type of benefits and stuff associated with it that are picking up more steam now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a product that I really wanted to start selling. At first, I wasn't even like making any money off of it because I wasn't charging a correct price on it because there was so much stuff that I was unaware of whenever it came to a business. Like, you have the cost of the goods, but you also have to factor in like taxes, shipping, cost for the website, and like all this other overhead, cost of labels, that I was not factoring in. So, it started out with just me selling to a couple friends, and they would spread the word. And I think one of the first people who kind of recognized us, that we were posting the test results of the TUDCA we had was Dominic Cardone. So he posted about us, saying like, these guys have some good TUDCA. And from there, we started getting more clients, specifically like bodybuilding competitors, that sort of thing. So from there, I kind of realized that, there's some potential here. And from there, we started branching off into different products. After like a year and a half after that, we came out with Ire, and that started doing well too. But yeah, I mean, the reason that I never really branched into other things like pre-workout, fat burner, that kind of thing, because like I didn't really see the need to use them. And it just wasn't interesting to me. Like there's already so many companies that were doing that and are still doing that. Um, and for me, like I was never big on like pre-workouts. Most of the time if I need something, I'll just take like some caffeine or something. Well, now I'll take like Zenith because we have something that's like a nootropic with some stimulants, so it's suitable there. But like I never need to go big on the dosing of stimulants and that sort of thing to be able to motivate myself to get to work out. So from my standpoint, it was like I want to help athletes be at their very best, and a pre-workout's not necessarily going to do that. But if I'm able to help athletes stay healthy and have their blood work, keep in check for longer, then they're going to be able to, have their PED cycles be longer. They're going to get more out of those cycles because they're healthier, their body's responding better. So to me, that was where like the meat and potatoes of an effective supplement in my mind, um, really would come from. Like, so I really wanted to go all in on that and focus on, how much we can benefit from, from gaining from that aspect.
Interesting you talk about that. I actually first heard about your company years ago because you will remember him. Boston made a post about his kidney markers, and then
Oh
he
yeah,
had
yeah.
he had used your product, and I know there's like a bit of a rift and all that, but then it got me interested in the way you had formulated your kidney product. Because I think what I found very fascinating was there was actual literature papers behind ingredients chosen, and it made sense. Going, okay, this is why this product is made this way. Would you say nowadays, because a lot of companies now are doing health supplements, um, but I tend to find that most of them sort of throw the kitchen sink at it and hope, oh yeah, that's gonna, and it's quite generic based, the formulation. What would you say your logic behind your formulation has been? And because yours is very specific and what it's targeting to do, I guess, from my perspective.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like everything I come out with, like our marketing is basically just describing my thought process on how it works. So like everything I come out with, I look at, studies, clinical studies to see if there really is some benefit from this ingredient, and if there is, to ensure that we have it at the specified dose. Um, so like I basically combine that with also my knowledge of, chemistry. And that's a big reason why I make sure a lot of ingredients are standardized, like our astragaloside 4. So instead of using astragalus, we use astragaloside 4 because that's the primary compound in astragalus root that is known for those sort of benefits towards the kidney. And that way we can really get a good dose. 25 milligrams is the dose that I came up with back in 2020, I think, to use that in, which, if you were to just get a typical astragalus root, you'd need like 25 to 50 grams worth, which how many capsules is that? Like 50 or 15 to 20 capsules or something? Like no one's going to be, it's just not practical. So, just looking at things like that. And I mean, because like these are all products that I want to use, that I want to benefit me as well. So like I'm also a competitive bodybuilder. I want to see how far I can go realistically. So all of these things I also have the added benefit of like, hey, I'm going to use this too, and I want it to be as effective as possible. So I guess that's another motivating factor, that I want the product to work. I want to be able to uh, explain people how it works. And I want something to be like unique about it.
Mm.
Um, I like making innovative formulas just because that's what keeps my interest, in this aspect. Again, it's like why I haven't done like pre-workouts or anything like that. Like I want to do something that kind of hasn't been done before in a sense, and see, see how people like it, and see how it will benefit people. And so far, a lot of our products I feel, have done that pretty well. And I mean, that's basically the gist of it.
Did, did you ever have any like influences um, outside of, obviously you studied, but were there people that kind of influenced you in your decision making? I know Dante plays a big role in a lot of people's moves now. Like he makes a post and then everyone's all over whatever he's talking about. Australia's route was one of them. I know he posted about, I think it was like 6 grams or 8 grams or so, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I need to get this." Is there anyone that kind of motivated or influenced you through your decision making? And
Um, well, Dante's actually, he was also one of the first people who recommended our Tudka. It was in the Geared Up bodybuilding group on Facebook, which had a lot of bodybuilders in it. He said, why don't you guys check Leviathan out? They're posting the test results and stuff. It seems like a pretty upfront sort of thing. So, check it out. I mean, for some reason, uh, he never really wanted to make health supplements or something, even though if he did, I'm sure he'd make a killing out of it.
yeah,
So, he recommended us instead, which I think it was very cool. Um, but yeah, like anything that he says, people really will take his word on it, which could both be good and bad, I guess. But yeah, like in terms of the health supplement side, there's not really anyone I like, you know, get that sort of thing from, unless you're talking like Dante. But like in terms of like actual chemists and stuff, like I definitely looked up to Patrick Arnold, back in the day when I mean, he was someone who made like revolutionary products. I'm not sure how much we can delve into that, but like what Patrick is known for and what he did. So like I kind of wanted to be like that in the supplement industry with, coming up with new products and that sort of thing. But of course, we're not making designer steroids, so it's a little different, but still like the same kind of like innovation, in like, uh, just having that background in chemistry and applying it, is something that really interested me.
yeah, it is quite interesting because if you go back a decade ago, uh, health side wasn't really, there wasn't really much known. It was like, oh, take some nat, what you may see, and
Milk
milk
thistle for
thistle,
your oral cycles.
and that was probably that. To be honest, that was it. Like when I first got into bodybuilding, that was kind of what I got told was, you have some NAC and milk thistle, and you'll be good to go. And then you get kind of further into it, and you realize, no, there's a lot more
Yeah.
involved than just that. Um, but one thing I wanted to kind of touch on now, because I see it a lot, was 10 years ago, products didn't really have a patented ingredient on it. Like it wasn't very common. You wouldn't see, like for example, you could look at a hydration product and it may say cocoa mineral something and it's trademarked and all that. Do you think nowadays supplement companies like hide behind the patented ingredients a bit? And do you think that maybe that's not the best measure of like how good a product might actually be? Um, yeah, I just want to ask you that from a formulation side and owning your own company.
Yeah. I've seen this a lot. Like you'll see products that have like a bunch of patent ingredients, and people see, the shiny logos and stuff, and for some reason they associate a patented ingredient with something that's innovative and that it's going to work. But like if you see a patented ingredient, like I'll have people, these ingredient manufacturers like email me on their ingredient and stuff, and basically the first thing I ask them is like, okay, like show me a spec sheet. It's like I want to see what ingredient is actually in there, what compound you're standardizing for, and what makes it different from the generic version of that
Yeah,
ingredient. And in a lot of cases, there is no difference. Like the only difference is they came up with a shiny logo and name associated with this generic ingredient that you can buy for 10 times cheaper, if you don't use their patented ingredient. So yeah, it's a hit and miss kind of field. And I mean, it is a business, so these trade these ingredients are being trademarked and upsold so that business can make their profits and they can brand the ingredient and make these sort of claims. But yeah, I mean there are some that are pretty innovative, and I think um, there's some sort of like, or I think there's a difference between, yeah, patented is the one. So I think like uh, Glucovantage, the dihydroberberine. So I think that's
yeah,
patented versus just like trademarked. So they basically own the dihydroberberine ingredient. So like you can't, or I think technically you could go and buy like a generic version of dihydroberberine, but you can't make the claims under which they own the patent, which I think are like improving insulin sensitivity or like anything that you're going to use, if you put dihydroberberine in your product. So that sort of thing is pretty cool. Ingredients like that, and again, that's why we have like Longvita in our ire. It's curcumin in a solid lipid nanoparticle form. So it's not just a standard curcumin that they have a fancy name for it. There's actually some science and effort that goes into making that ingredient more bioavailable. And you can look at like independent studies for this. That's another thing. A lot of trademarked ingredients will show you their own studies that they do, and like they come up with these colorful like graphs and images for you to look at, like, oh, here, look over here at this of like what we want to show you that shows the benefits of the ingredient. And then like, but like I always like to look separately at like if there's like a generic version of that form of technology that they're using, like you can look at the benefits of solid lipid nanoparticles, not necessarily in something like Longvita, but just in general, they're kind of similar to like liposomes or micelles, but performative wise, they're actually a little bit more bioavailable. So that's another kind of like checking the box to show that like these ingredients are actually a little bit different, and they they should perform better than something that's just like a brand name, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think uh, what I see quite a bit of is obviously like some well-known companies use trademarked ingredients, but then they're not very clear on their manufacturing process. So they like it's all well and good you get these ingredients, but then what's your quality control, and how well are you actually putting the product together? And I think that's sometimes where people may or customers may not understand that that can fall off. And although you can make claims and put on a tub, if your manufacturing process is pretty poor, the product's not going to be as good as what it says it is. And then also the formulation ideas behind them sometimes don't make sense to be like, okay, there's a lot of crossover here. You shouldn't really throw all of this together.
Yeah. Like I've with one example of that was with like piperine or bioperine. You'll see it in like almost every product,
Yeah,
and like people just associate that, like if they see it in a product, like, oh, it's going to make it more absorbable. It's like, no, not necessarily. There are certain like chemical compounds that bioperine works on, and like you need to know how it works, and it works by inhibiting, a certain CYP 3A4 liver enzymes. So you need to make sure that whatever ingredient that you're pairing bioperine with is actually metabolized by CYP3A4. Um, and you can kind of look at the chemical structures uh, to to see if it is or not and give you an idea, or you can do some research. But like there are companies where it's clearly something that's not metabolized by that liver enzyme, and they'll still put bioperine in there, and like they're like, oh, it's increasing bioavailability, and like, okay, you have no idea what you're doing here. It's like,
yeah,
but like I guess people still buy it, so it's still like a good marketing boost for them or something. It's just,
marketing tool. Like, yeah,
unfortunate. Yeah,
it is a bit frustrating. I see it a bit with in certain health subs as well, where with like people use IP6, and I'm like, it's a if you look at the literature, it's a great ingredient. It's good at chelating iron, and in theory it can do its job, but then it chelates everything else. So it's like, okay,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't have it
right,
alongside other vitamins, but then people are not aware of that. So when I see it mixed in with a supplement, I'm like, probably not the best. Like I would keep it separate. And again, that's
yeah,
probably where someone like yourself, and I think now kind of moving into my next question, I saw that you obviously do like a standalone Tudka, standalone NAC. Is there a reason for that? Is it because you wanted to keep those separate from like your general health sub? Because maybe we get into Irie like that. That's a product that I looked at and I was like, okay, I'm very interested in the logic behind the formulation because it's unlike anything else on the market. So yeah, a couple questions there, but yeah,
mhm,
maybe we start with the separate ingredients and then into Irie. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So basically, I mean, whenever I came out with Tudka, like Tudka's pretty much the number one thing that you're going to need for liver function anyways. So it's like that's gonna the first thing that you're going to go to, and like we wanted to third party test it and just offer like pure quality Tudka, so that was the thing. Um, and like we still have a lot of customers who come, all they need is Tudka, even though we like technically what we could do, which I've seen a lot of other companies do who started offering standalone Tudka, they didn't, lower the dose of Tudka, increase the cost of the product, added a couple of other things, add some NAC, milk thistle, that sort of thing, and then their profits are better. Uh, so like I don't know, I just don't see a need for it.
yeah,
Tudka works great as a standalone. If you need some additional like antioxidant type of benefits towards the liver that are going to complement the Tudka working, then you could pick up NAC. But we just have them as standalones. I don't think there's much more needed in terms of liver support there. We've had people with their liver enzymes. Um, I think there was one guy who had it in like the high three. His ALT was like over 300 or something, and like he got
jeez,
it down back down under 100. Using, I think it was just Tudka alone. So in most cases, that's gonna you're gonna be pretty set with that combination or just Tudka alone. So I haven't really given much thought to making like a an all-in-one liver supplement because it's still just going to be those ingredients, maybe plus a couple of other things, but like in reality, those two ingredients are going to be the primary movers, and TUDCA more than anything.
Well, I think milk thistle's not really good. I see people use that still, and I'm like, there's no need.
Yeah.
There's just, it just
Yeah,
literally does nothing. I had a family member actually. He competes, and he's based in Australia, and he sent me his blood work, and he sends me a list of what he's doing to get his liver back, and he's like, "Oh, I've got injectable glutathione, I've got Tadka, I've got NAC, I've got milk thistle," and he's doing all that. And I'm like, "Geez, you're a bit overkill, man. Like, you probably just pick one and see if it works, and then go
yeah.
from there."
Yeah, and the
Um,
thing with milk thistle is like I don't think I've even seen one clinical study where it actually reliably produces results. I'm not even aware of like a mechanism of action in how it's supposed to help with liver function. So it's just like something that was from the forums like 10, 20 years ago that is still around, and that there are a couple of like ingredients or ideas like that that are still around for whatever reason. But I don't look, I don't support it. So I tell people use Tudka, and if they can either take that advice and get benefits from it, or uh, choose to
yeah.
use milk thistle and see how that works on their own, I guess.
So moving into Irie, that one of the probably products I was most interested about because from my look, it's a lot. It's working on more like inflammation and glucose in your bloodstream and managing through that side. What was your idea behind formulation in that product? Because it is truly unlike anything that is in the market. I think your general health subs normally have, like we said, NAC, TUDCA, and then vitamin D and a few other things thrown in there, like bergamot. Yeah, what was your logic behind the formulation in that product, and I guess what is it more targeted towards from your side?
Um, yeah, so Ire is basically like we wanted to make it like an all-in-one health product. Actually, back until 2020, we did have NAC in Ire. So that's another reason we came out with the standalone NAC after, because back in 2020, NAC got put on the FDA's like advisory list here. So like they were thinking about banning it, but luckily they weren't able to. So it came back a couple of years later. But in Ire, we already changed the formula. I think we doubled the amount of Arjuna and bergamot in there. So it was already like more potent, and I didn't want to revert to a previous version. So we basically just had the NAC come out as a standalone. But yeah, whenever I first came out with Ire, um, we just wanted it to be like a general health supplement to cover all the bases, like mainly, heart health, cholesterol, and blood sugar, because all three of those are kind of paired together. I mean, we had most of the liver issues covered with TUDCA. Um, and then I also wanted to make the focus of it to be curcumin because like, curcumin is a really interesting molecule. It has so many benefits. Like if there's just one ingredient that you could take, I would choose curcumin. Just the only issue with it is that its bioavailability is so poor. It's prone to a lot of metabolizing by the liver. So in this case, yes, you definitely would want to use bioperine or piperine to help with the absorption of curcumin if you are taking just a curcumin extract. So in this case, we have it in a solid lipid nanoparticle version. So it's basically able to like bypass liver metabolism for the most part because it gets absorbed through a different route. So it's absorbed and able to like bypass most of those liver metabolizing issues. And then, so a lot more of it is able to be active and is going to be effective. So yeah, that was basically the main focus of the product. I wanted to make a like a curcumin centered product. And then the rest of it was just kind of a bonus of all the other things. Like, having like a standardized Arjuna for heart health, having a good dose of bergamot for, lipids, LDL, HDL to some extent, and then something like resveratrol, grapeseed extract. We have some of the antioxidant benefits, and then of course, berberine for controlling blood sugar, reducing triglycerides. Because in a lot of cases, like triglycerides and LDL can be paired together. I mean, the triglycerides are still considered like a lipid, so it's going to have some of those potential. Like those two will usually go hand in hand when it comes to like different heart issues and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's I was quite interested as with the logic behind adding berberine, and I see the benefit because a lot of the times you know people are using diabetic medication to manage their blood glucose, but they're
Yeah,
not realizing the side effects from that piece, such as I think berberine is something. Hopefully, it never goes down the route of what they tried to do with NAC, but it's very beneficial, and especially if you
could
monitor your
happen.
blood sugar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you never know. People are always wanting to try and make money off things that work, right? So it's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
If
it's
it if it works, the FDA is going to try to ban it. So
yeah, yeah. That's what I like to do. Yeah, that's quite a cool product you have. The other one that I use personally myself now, and I actually have UC, so ulcerative colitis. Dealt with it for the last kind of 3 years, and I've been using your GI product, and I've used quite a bit of things, and this is by far the best product I've used
awesome, man.
personally,
It's
and
good.
I have I've had some good big flare ups over the last few weeks, and I implemented that about 10 days ago, and I haven't had an issue since.
Okay,
So that's real life
that's
product.
awesome.
I guess
Yeah.
product used to you. Did you use that because of what you or make that because of what you saw in the market, or was it for personal use? Like, did you deal with things yourself that you're like, okay, I need to make a product to kind of help? Because I know Rich from Strom, a lot of his formulations and products are basically made for himself. He's like, he made a product called Fromba Max, and he thought he was having heart issues, so he makes this product for heart and blood pressure and reducing hematocrit and all that. So, did you make this product for one of those reasons, or was it for what was out in the market that you saw?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I've had stomach issues mainly. For me, it was mainly heartburn. What's the word for it?
Acid reflux and
Acid reflux, but the disease. I had taken Prilosec for like since I was 15.
okay,
So I
yeah,
would I would just get heartburn or like acid reflux every, if even if I'd be up for a couple hours, even before a meal, it'll just start kicking in. So yeah, I waited till after my last bodybuilding show in 2021 because we came out with that product a few months before I competed. Um, so like I was still taking Prilosec until
yeah,
that show. Because like I didn't want to mess with anything before my show, so I waited till after the show, and then I started using the GI support, and also, which was important for me, was the betaine HCl with
yeah,
every meal, to supplement with like stomach acid for digestion. So I would do that, and then from there, I was able to stop using the Prilosec. So for me, that was big because like long-term use of PPIs can cause a lot of problems further down the road. Your risk of esophageal cancer is higher, and a few other issues. I think it can actually cause some like heart issues too, down the road if you what's the name of that? I think it can affect like the vagus nerve,
yeah.
if left untreated, especially with acid reflux. So yeah, I mean, for me, that was the big benefit. I didn't, but yeah, we've had a lot of people with like colitis and other like inflammation based digestive issues use it and have incredible results. So I think it works very well for that too, but it also helps with like the zinc L-carnosine and the DGL to look repair gut lining, help look repair the esophageal tract. If you're someone who's had acid reflux for a while, that could be like causing damage to the intestinal lining. And then with DGL, it kind of helps a little bit with that repair process too, and helps to restore the some of the mucosal membranes in that. And DGL is also helpful for like acid reflux in general. So yeah, like we paired that, and then it also has Prefer Pro, which is that's another. So that's like a patented or trademarked ingredient, but it's also very interesting because it has a bacteriophages. These are basically like viruses. I don't like using that word because it scares people, but like they're viruses that they're specifically will target, like bad bacteria in your gut. So they'll go after things like E. coli, I think like H. pylori. So it's kind of like an antibiotic without the downside. So it's just a really cool ingredient. If you have a little bit of like overgrowth in bad bacteria, GI support something can help because of that ingredient. Those bacteriophages are going to target that bad bacteria and kill it off, and it's going to keep the good bacteria that you have in your stomach and in your gut uninhibited. So it's a pretty interesting ingredient choice there.
Yes, I'm always skeptical, but when you have an autoimmune disease, you but okay, is it going to do something? And I always say to Thomas, I'm the bit of the test guinea pig of going like I'll try it and do blood work and see what happens. And I was quite surprised because mine's to the point where I really can't even have caffeine, like that will cause flare ups and things like that. So to take a product and go, yep, within about a week, I started noticing symptoms lessen, and then now I have none. It's pretty remarkable. So, well done to you, man. It's a really good product, and it's something that now
Thank you.
I am recommending to people I work with. And it's unfortunate, like we live in a world now that gut health is not talked about enough. I think people have more of these diseases than they let on to believe, and maybe it's a fear of shame or something like that. But I'm pretty open and honest about it. So, hopefully people become more honest and talk about it, and then they get onto products like what you've made because that genuinely does work. Um, what's next for you? Like now that you 6 years into running your company, what's the next step? I know you're branching out now. You're across the world in New Zealand, which is quite exciting, and being able to be in Australia as well. Where do you see yourself for 2024?
Um, so we're coming out with a thyroid product that hopefully 2-3 months we'll have it available, and then I think we want to come out with like a GDA, and then we also have demand for like a test booster type of product. So there's a couple more products that we want to make, but I'm kind of aiming to make less products every year, maybe 2, 3 or something. Because I think back in 2022 we came out with like 5 products that year.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to focus on actually expanding our business side, our customer base, gaining more retailers, so we can have more eyes on our products, rather than just focusing on releasing new products, because like there's only so much that you can do in terms of like health products too. So there's that aspect, and also the more products we come out with, the more we have to be cautious of like cash flow, and making sure that we have enough to restock this product, and continually buy more, and scale up the quantities as well. So it kind of becomes more of a balancing act, especially because our products do come with a higher cost of goods than most most brands probably. So, we're just trying to focus on expanding that, getting our name out there more. And I don't know. I mean, just seeing where that leads us to, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of innovation that we've already done in terms of health products in general and like different ingredients and stuff. But like if I see an ingredient that catches my eye, which I do have a couple of ingredients in mind that I I really like and would like to use in the products, but like there's a few that are not. They don't have like a GRAS status here in the United States, which basically would allow them to be used as dietary supplements. So like they're not really qualified to be used in a dietary supplement. So like you can apply ingredients to do so, but like it takes a couple of years. I'm sure it costs a lot of money. So who knows? Maybe like down the line, that's another thing. Like down the line, we could do something like that, or like patent our own ingredient or something. Um, I guess that's a possibility, but it's also, there's also a lot of financial cost that comes with that. And I guess if we were to patent an ingredient, we'd also want, other companies to use it because, that's how we make the profit. So that's just uh, another difficult thing to consider business wise. But it would be cool to say, hey, this is an ingredient that Leviathan Nutrition came out with, and it works really well, and all this stuff. That'd be pretty cool. But
That's
I
definitely
think, yeah, I think we're a little bit away from that for now.
I think you'll get there sooner rather than later because in New Zealand I haven't seen a brand move as quickly as yours has when they
That's
launched it.
awesome.
Like Thomas was talking about the numbers, and it's pretty promising now because we've got a few people that we work with that are quite influential in bodybuilding scene. In New Zealand is it's interesting because it's still very small. Like we're still I would say we're probably a decade behind everyone else in terms of bodybuilders and
Uh-huh.
quality of bodybuilders. But, we have some people that are quite influential that are talking about your products now and, it's moving, which is always exciting. And especially from my side, I only really talk about stuff that works and that I truly believe in. And if I put my name to it, I'm like, yep, that's a quality product. And I'm going to do some blood work on your kidney product and see how that's going and all that, which I know from your approach, it's probably going to go very well. Um, in terms of personal side and outside of the supplement side, when's the next bodybuilding comp and what's your plans?
Um, so my next plan is to do uh USA's here
Okay,
in 2025, which it's usually in
yeah,
July. So it's like a year and a half to prepare. But like first I'd have to qualify for a national level show. So we would probably look at right now I'm dieting down, so probably do a couple more months of that and then maybe another full like off season phase, put more size on, especially like my arms, chest, upper body that I need to match my legs. And then probably do a show, like a month or two before USA's in 2025. Hopefully I would win the overall. If I don't, then I wasn't cut out to do a national show yet, anyways. But we'll see how that goes, and hopefully that would be my goal to get to USA's and just see how I would do at a national level show. So yeah, just plugging away at that still, every day. Just yeah, I enjoy it doing both the business and the bodybuilding side. Just checking all the boxes, make sure you get all your meals in, make sure you do your training, your cardio, and then checking off the boxes for the business side. It's just like a routine that I stick to every day, and it's gotten me this far. And that's another thing, like because I got into bodybuilding at a very young age. At 16, I was prepping my own meals and stuff instead of eating what my mom would make at home. So I think that kind of mentality has also helped immensely for like being an entrepreneur and having your own business and stuff, because you really know how to allocate your time better. Um, you know you know that you have to like put things, delay gratification for, if you actually want to make progress. It's like you can't just go out and like eat shit food every night or every weekend and expect to make progress in the gym. It's like, well, same thing with your business. You can't expect to not check off all the boxes and be consistent with like even, social media and um, marketing and like all this other stuff when it comes to growing a business and expect your business to actually grow. So it's something that I feel like has really helped me with the success of our company. And of course, that we're catering to bodybuilders and that sort of thing is something I really like too. So, bodybuilding has been a big part of my life for, over half of my life now. And, I just want to kind of like preach that message to other people, especially younger people that like one of the best things that you can do is like get into bodybuilding at a young age and be taught those values because like, whether or not you're going to turn pro or do well in shows and that sort of thing, like bodybuilding is going to teach you the values that it takes to be successful in a lot of different avenues of life. So, that's like the main takeaway from it, really.
I completely agree. Like I started a little bit later than you, about 17, 18, but I did martial arts for 13 years before, and my old man was like, oh,
Oh,
you
wow.
did it from five, and from five to about 18, I was doing that, and then I was like, okay, I'm kind of sick of being skinny and small. I was, what was I, about 64 kilos, so that would have been 150-ish
Okay.
pounds,
Yeah.
100, maybe a bit more. No, probably about 150. So it's not big. I'm like 245 now, so it's a little, little. You put on 100
Nice
pounds, right?
100 pound gain. Yeah.
It's a little different, but it's the same thing as like this. I do this to help Thomas out, and I enjoy podcasts and I enjoy just helping people. But everything I learned from bodybuilding has been transferable in my business that I work in, and I think that's the big takeaway I hope a lot of people get from it is just that you may not be the best bodybuilder, but you could take some of these skills and become the best at whatever else you decide to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think, and it is interesting you say that, like, because you talked about prepping your own meals. I did the exact same thing. I was like, no, I'm not going to eat what my mum's
Yeah.
making. It's a
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
yeah,
My mom would give me shit all the time for doing it too.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, what are
I
you
get
doing?
that.
It was such a
How
weird
old are
thing
you?
to them.
How old are you now?
I just turned 34, so
Beautiful.
I've
So,
been almost doing this for 20 years. Yeah.
It's,
It's been a while.
do your parents still give you a bit of crap for it and
Yeah,
making your own
they
meal?
still
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah, that is good.
Every time I go down for the holidays, they're like, "Oh, are you gonna eat with us?" I'm like it's literally like Christmas Day, and like I don't have a show or anything. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna eat with you. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't know, you're always doing your own diet and this sort of thing. Like, it's like,
we
well,
just,
it's like one day a year.
it's
It's,
very funny because I used to get the same, and then when I was coming over kind of every weekend, and they're like, oh, we've got dinner here, grab one. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. It's
yeah,
I've eaten my meals, I'm fine. But the
yeah,
logic to them is, even I think fathers are the funniest because my old man used to weight train back in the 80s and like early 90s, and the logic
uh,
to them back then was eat everything and train out hours, and they the
yeah.
guys can't understand nutrition. They're like, oh no, you just eat everything, and I'm like, I wish it was
Oh my
that easy,
God.
but we
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe if
um,
you're a hard gainer.
yeah, maybe. Cool, man. Well, look, anything else you want to touch up on or catch up on, or any comments, I guess, or statements from you before we shoot off?
Um, but not that I can think of. I mean, people when in New Zealand, Australia, when they give our products a try, and this,
Yeah,
what we talked about here resonates with them, give it a
yeah.
try. Let me or you guys know how it goes, and hopefully that we can continue growing in New Zealand, Australia, and contributing over there as well. And that'd be really cool.
No, man. Look, again, it's a pleasure talking to you. I know we'll chat some more, but I will finish up the podcast here, and then we can have a chat after. Cool,
All
man.
right,
Thank
sounds
you
good,
again.
man. All right. Thank you.